For our first story, we have, am I the ass for mowing my lawn early morning because the neighbor kids keep waking me up? Alright, I work late nights and sleep in every morning. My neighbors right next door have 3 little kids who scream and play and bang and awe in the backyard at 7 in the morning every single day. I mean talking yelling, running, loud toys, pounding, whatever they can do to make noise. I know. Kids are kids. But every morning? Weekends too? No. Just no. I nicely mentioned it to my neighbor a few weeks ago. She laughed and said, "Oh, they're early risers. You'll get used to it." No apology, no effort to quiet them down. So the other day, I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and mowed my lawn right up against their yard. Then I used my leaf blower for added punch. Neighbor comes outside in her jammies all pissed off. "Why are you being so inconsiderate?" she says. I smile and say, "Oh, I'm an early riser. You'll get used to it." Now she and some other neighbors are saying I should have just dealt with it like an adult. But I feel like I just gave them a taste of their own medicine. Those kids need to be considerate too. Am I the ass? Edit typo. That's the end of our first post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "Not the asshole, very petty, but she'll get used to it." Our second commenter says, "I know I'm old, but we were never allowed to go outside to play, or make personal phone calls before 9 a.m. We hated it, but we're told that if someone has a day off they should at least be allowed to sleep until 9. I stand by that decades later. This should be a law. We have enough other petty laws. What's one more? Law." Our third commenter says, "Love it. No actual damage was done and you said exactly what she said to you back to her. Well executed, not the asshole." For our second story, we have, Aita for calling CPS when my daughter was making my granddaughter do the night shift with the babies. I'm a mom of 7 daughters and a grandmother to 28 grandkids. My oldest grandkid is 16, and she's the reason I'm sharing this. My daughter, Julia, has 5 kids, 16, 5, 3, 11 months, and a newborn. I went over to help her out since she just had a baby last week, thinking she could use some assistance with the housework and all that. I made dinner and put together a cute snack basket for those late night wake-ups. When it was time for me to leave, it started raining, which I really hate driving in, so I asked if I could crash there for the night. They said yes, but I'd have to sleep on the sofa. My granddaughter offered me her bed since she has a big one for 2. I was relieved because I didn't want to sleep on the couch. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard the baby crying and wasn't feeling great, so I went downstairs to grab some lemon honey tea. That's when I found my granddaughter up with the newborn and the 11-month-old. I asked her why she was on duty instead of her parents. She told me she had the night shift with the babies because her parents wanted her to have some responsibility. I got really upset because it's not fair for her to lose sleep over kids who aren't hers. The next morning, I told Julia about it, and she said that older siblings helping out is pretty normal. I reminded her that I never did that with her and her siblings, and her response was, "So? I'm not you. These are my kids." My granddaughter mentioned she's thinking about getting pregnant or married so she can move out. I told her that's not the answer. She said she feels like she doesn't have another option. I ended up calling CPS to share what was going on. They spoke to Julia, my son-in-law, and my granddaughter but said there wasn't enough evidence to take it any further. Julia thought it was a jerk move to involve CPS and said I should be grateful she's willing to stay low contact instead of going no contact. As a mom and grandma, I can't help but feel like I stirred up drama in my granddaughter's life. Am I the ass? That's the end of our second post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "Take the 16-year-old and let her live with you if you can." Our second commenter says, "Not the asshole. Would you be willing to have your granddaughter live with you? What your daughter is doing is called parentification, and it's abuse. If you want to make sure the last 2 years of her high school years aren't adversely impacted. If she ends up getting pregnant to escape this, she's ruining her future." Our third commenter says, "Your granddaughter is 16, you need to petition the courts to have you have custody or guardian rights over her and move her into your home. Your daughter and her husband are monumental assholes and pos and shitshow parents. They have no business making children they don't want to take care of if the courts don't give you guardian rights. Go and pick your granddaughter up from school and keep her in your home after school so she can sleep and rest and eat, and send her home at 11 p.m. after your daughter has taken care of her brood. Keep her on the weekends from Friday to Sunday every other day. Not enough to have them complain that she is a runaway. Be her safe place. Number 16-year-old has any business taking care of 4 kids under 5, including a newborn, as the breeders are snoring away. She should be getting ready for prom and getting her driver's license and getting ready to apply for college and scholarships, not being a wet nurse and surrogate parent for her mother, who clearly has no interest in using birth control. For our last story, we have: am I the ass for not taking one for the team and not paying for my Sil and her family to come on our spring break trip? Twice a year, my wife, 3 kids, and I go on a trip with just us. During spring break, it is a domestic trip. During summer, it is an international trip. These 2 trips are my favorite things we do throughout the year. We live very frugally throughout the year, but during these trips, we do it big. The money for the trips comes from separate, non-martial passive income I have from a family commercial real estate business. In case anyone is wondering, we have a prenup. After our trip last summer, my Sil, wife's sister, told my wife that her husband and her were going to save up and come on next year's trips, i.e. the 2025 trips, with their 2 kids. My wife didn't push back. I heard about this a couple of months later and was quite frustrated. I do not like my Sil at all. It is a long story. My wife convinced me to be okay with it by laying out that they will get their own accommodations and outside some shared meals. I did not need to spend much time with her. Well, in January, my BIL's job issued a return to the office directive. He was working remotely and lived out of the state of his office. They offered a short window for anyone who did not want to return to resign and get a good severance package. He resigned and took the severance. After that happened, they decided they could not come on the trip. There is a chance they will need to sell their house and move in with my in-laws. Well, about 2 weeks ago, my mother-in-law, wife, and Sil were spending the day together. My Sil kept being up how upset she was about the whole thing and about how much she was looking forward to the trip. My mother-in-law pulled my wife aside and said, "I know y'all can pay for the trip. Just pay for it." So, my wife offered for us to pay for it. After my wife told me this, I was livid. I said, "You want me to pay for the terrible experience of doing this trip with your sister? No, I will not do it under any circumstances. This is a 2 yes and 1 no situation. I am a no, so she isn't coming. My wife thinks I should take one for the team and pay. I refuse. I do feel bad for her kids. But I am not paying for the displeasure of being around my Sil. Heck, I have offered to take her kids only on the trip. I would be fine with that. They can stay with us. But, right now, I am left with either effectively doubling the cost of the trip or having them stay with us on the trip, which is counter to why I agreed to let her come in the first place. Am I the ass? That's the end of our last post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, if mother-in-law wants her to go so bad, she can pay for them. Our second commenter says, not the asshole. It is time for your wife to take one for the team. You already took one by agreeing to let her come on the trip in the first place. Our third commenter says, this is a huge wife problem. I'd tell wife she shouldn't unilaterally make offers she can't fulfill. I'd further tell her that her mother doesn't get a vote in how you spend your expendable income. I'd probably tell Mildred myself, actually. It seems your wife has little backbone. That's all for today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.